Another crisis as we switch to the war in Ukraine. At least 2 people have been injured by falling debris after Ukraine's air defenses repelled a Russian aerial attack on Kyiv in the early hours of today. Residents of Ukraine's capital are taking shelter in a subway station as Russian attack caused air raid alerts across the country that were later lifted. Footage shows people sleeping on the floors and benches of a Kyiv subway station. They were also seen pitching tents in corridors. Ukrainian authorities lifted an air raid alert across most of the nation, and officials in the capital said defenses appear to have shot down more than 30 missiles and drones fired by Russia. Moscow has launched around 20 separate missiles and drone strikes against Ukrainian city since the start of May. A 9-year-old Ukrainian girl, her mother and another woman have been killed in a Russian missile strike on Kyiv after the air raid shelter they rushed to failed to open. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed frustration at the incident, saying that if the local officials were unable to provide protection, then they could be prosecuted. Police opened a criminal investigation into the 3 deaths near a medical clinic in the district of Kyiv. Mr. Zelensky, in his nightly message, said shelters must be kept accessible. He said, quote, "Never again should we see a repeat of the situation that occurred last night in Kyiv." Meanwhile, the mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko, says authorities have launched an investigation into a reportedly blocked entrance to the bomb shelter at a residential block comprising homes, kindergartens to schools and a clinic. Russia denies targeting civilians or committing war crimes, but its forces have devastated cities and repeatedly hit residential areas since the February 24, 2022 invasion.
The prosecutor's office, security services and police have begun investigation. Conclusions will be drawn. Was the entrance to the bomb shelter closed or not? It is impossible to ascertain now because all the doors were blown away.
We have weeks long, every day, the Russians send their kamikaze drone and missiles to our hometown, and a lot of people killed, a lot of buildings destroyed. We have a big part of people who have an injury, and yes, of course, people very angry. People very angry. It's not the war; it's genocide against Ukraine, against Ukrainian people from Russia.
In the meantime, the death of the 9-year-old girl killed during a Russian missile attack on Kyiv shocked Ukrainian parents as the country marked Children's Day. Ukraine and other post-Soviet countries traditionally mark Children's Day on June the 1st, but this year, authorities in Ukraine have cancelled most Children's Day celebrations to mourn the child killed. A United Nations humanitarian coordinator for Ukraine, Denise Brown, said in a statement that the war was having a devastating impact on the mental health and well-being of children. The UN said in its statement that over 1,500 children had been killed and injured in Ukraine since the start of the war. And footage from Russian media shows the aftermath of shelling in the town of Shebekino in Russia's Belgorod border region, blamed by local officials on Ukraine. Belgorod Governor Vyacheslav Gladkov says Ukraine's armed forces had repeatedly shelled the area with Soviet-designed Grad 122mm rockets, setting alight a dormitory and damaging an administrative building. 2 women were killed and at least 9 civilians were injured in shelling across the region, adding that the evacuation of residents to temporary accommodation would resume when the fighting calmed down. Mr. Gladkov says hundreds of children, women and the elderly were already leaving the area. In the meantime, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has reiterated that Russia's priority in its border region of Belgorod is to help residents and support those who need temporary relocation following 3 attempted cross-border incursions from Ukraine and heavy shelling of the area. Russia's defense military said it had repelled 3 cross-border attacks on Thursday near Shebekino, and it accused Ukraine of using what it caused as terrorist formations to carry out attempted attacks on Russian civilians ahead of an expected Ukrainian counteroffensive in the 15-month military conflict. The Belgorod region, which neighbors Ukraine's Kyiv region, has been under heavy shelling in recent days. Last month, a cross-border raid by pro-Ukrainian forces briefly seized several frontier settlements, and earlier this week, the biggest ever drone attack on Moscow. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has reiterated his country's criticism of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but said he had been trying to remain neutral in order to be able to broker potential peace talks. President Lula told reporters after a meeting with Finland's President Sauli Niinisto in Brasilia that he was looking to create conditions for both countries to engage in peace negotiations that contributes to the search for a peaceful solution to the conflict. The Finnish president, whose country, Russia's neighbor, joined NATO in March, said he feels that every attempt to reach peace is valuable, but at the moment, that's not in sight.
The attack to Ukraine made by Russia is illegal, and we have condemned it in United Nations handlings. I do understand that, or my feeling is that every attempt to reach peace is valuable, but I think that at the moment it is not in sight. Nevertheless, I fully agree that once a fair, justified peace has come, Ukraine has got a justified peace, the peace must be somehow guaranteed, because war always leaves bitter feelings, and to have a sustainable peace, we need the big ones, if I may use this word, to, in a way, guarantee that both respect whatever the peace is. And I think...
In the meantime, Ukraine's Ministry of Renovation and Infrastructure says the UN-brokered Black Sea grain export deal has been halted again because Russia had blocked registration of ships to all Ukrainian ports. UN spokesman Stefan Dujarric said Russia had informed officials overseeing the initiative that Moscow would limit registrations to the port of Pivdeny in Odessa province until all parties agree to unblock the transit of Russian ammonia. The United Nations and Turkey brokered the Black Sea Grain Initiative between Moscow and Kyiv last July to help tackle a global food crisis aggravated by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, a leading global grain exporter.
We are concerned about the continuous slowdown of the implementation of the Black Sea Initiative, observed particularly in the month of April and May. In May, 33 vessels departed Ukrainian ports, half of the number compared to the previous month of April. Only 3 of those ships departed from the ports of Yuzhny Pivdeny, one of the 3 Ukrainian ports covered under the agreement. Exports in May reached 1.3 million metric tons of grains and other foodstuff. That's less than half of the previous months. The Russian Federation has informed the JCC of its decision to limit registrations to the port of Yuzhny Pivdeny as long as ammonia is not exported, and currently it's not. Since May 24th, the number of inspection teams at the JCC has been reduced from 3 to 2. The limited registrations and reduced inspection teams contributed to the drop of the average daily inspection rate down to 3. This is a very serious situation. We need to move forward. The initiative is bound for renewal on 17 July. Global hunger hotspots are increasing, as we've been notifying you on a regular basis, and the specter of food inflation and market volatility lurks in all countries. Our fear, as outlined in what I said, is to see a spike in global food prices, to see volatility. I mean, we saw the positive impact on the monthly food index once the initiative was signed and working, and now things are slowing down.
and BRICS nations have reaffirmed their commitment to multilateralism. They made their commitment at a conference of foreign members in Cape Town, South Africa. The event, which is being hosted by South Africa's Minister of International Relations, Naledi Pandor, serves as a preparation for the August summit, which will take place in Johannesburg amid the political conundrum of Russian President Vladimir Putin attending. The Foreign Affairs Minister of Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa are also considering applications from several Asian, Middle Eastern and African countries to join the bloc of developing nations. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Semosa, reports.
This year, South Africa assumes the chair of BRICS and will host regional and international leaders during the 15th summit of the grouping in August.
South Africa is the current chair of BRICS, and we have agreed to focus on BRICS and Africa as the key thematic area, focused on accelerating partnerships between Africa and the BRICS countries.
BRICS ministers also spoke about the expansion of the bloc.
BRICS is a different structure. It's a new organization based on the principles of equality, mutual respect, consensus, non-interference, and strict adherence to the United Nations Charter.
There are many aspects of it. One part of it is actually to consolidate how the existing BRICS members are working with each other. The second part of it is how the BRICS engages non-BRICS countries. And the third part of it is how we look at potential expansion.
31.5% of the world GDP is produced by the 5 countries of BRICS, countries which also have 40% of the world population. So it's a very important asset. And we are working, this is maybe why of this big success that it's attracted.
This does discuss the current geopolitical environment and its impact on emerging markets.
First, be independent. Emerging markets and developing countries should manage their own affairs, and these affairs are up to ourselves. No one else has the right to lecture us or take away our right to follow a path that suits our own national conditions.
Another long-standing issue that Minister Naledi Pandor emphasized relates to the ICC warrant of arrest for Russian President Vladimir Putin.
The South African government is currently looking at what the various legal options are with respect to this matter. And I have indicated that it is something I believe the President would be the best person to speak about once they have reached a conclusion.
While BRICS ministers are in closed doors deliberating on different issues outside, Ukrainians are protesting, registering their dissatisfaction. They say that they do not want to see President Putin in South Africa.
Why International Criminal Court provided this warrant of arrest specifically for that? So what Russia is doing, they are forcefully separating children from their parents. They are providing Russian citizenship and changing personal data of those children. So this is absolutely illegal, and we hope that South Africa will stand with Ukraine on children's rights.
South Africa still advocates for a peaceful settlement in Ukraine. Meanwhile, the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Naledi Pandor, says that they are totally opposed to the unilateral sanctions as they tend to have far-reaching implications. From Cape Town, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channel Television News.